Our Lenten Lunchtime lesson from Father Andrew, the Society of the Divine Compassion. Tuesday after the first Sunday in Lent, self-emptying and fulfillment. Jesus counted it not a thing to be grasped at, to be on equality with God, but emptied himself. This verse comes from one of the noblest passages in the Bible. Our Lord did not think it a thing to be grasped at to be equal with God, or to have the high dignity of being in heavenly places. What he thought a thing to be grasped at was the opportunity of revealing the love of the Father and of bringing to this world salvation. To put it very briefly, the things he thought were to be grasped at were the manger, the cross, and the altar, because in those three ways he could reveal his humility, his sympathy, and his abiding love for us, his poor children. He emptied himself. What amazing words those are. That is what we have to grasp at. Anything that empties us of ourselves. We want to empty ourselves of ourselves, that we may become vessels filled with the presence of God. This is a wonderful thing about the divine possession, that a man's personality becomes developed and deepened and individualized the more he yields himself up to God. If a man is dominated by some other man or by a woman, he loses his individuality. He does not express himself. He is like a ventriloquist doll, which expresses someone else's mind. But when a soul is dominated by God, that soul is completely and wholly itself. If I can only empty myself of myself and yield myself to my God that he may indwell me, the more completely I die to self, the more completely I become myself. That is one of the great paradoxes of our religion. Losing all, we find all. In the story of the Garden of Eden, the devil suggested that God was afraid of Adam and Eve becoming like him, and for that reason he'd forbidden them to eat of the fruit of the tree of life. He said, "Eat of the fruit, and you will become like God." But that is what God asks of us, to become like himself. Patience. It is God incarnate who says, "Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect." Every single soul is called to be a saint. It is unthinkable that the great God should want to create a sinner. The difference between the saints and ourselves is not a difference of vocation. Again, the difference is not the grace given. Every single soul who comes to the altar receives God himself. The same God who was manifested as the babe of Bethlehem in sympathy with our need and our weakness is manifest in the Blessed Sacrament as the food of our souls. The difference is in our response. As we respond more and more to the grace of God, so we become capable of greater response. As we are loyal to the vision of light, we become capable of seeing greater light. So we are led on from grace to grace, from light to light. As our Lord said, "He that hath seen me hath seen the Father." The veiling in the flesh of the Son of God is the unveiling of the love of God. Curidar said in one of his simple sentences, "The saints did not begin well, all of them, but they all ended well." We may all end well. We fall again and again, and the good God knows just what we are, but we can go back to him again and again. We have not to seek any extraordinary conditions. Just in our street, we can become saints. There are three things that may always have before us whenever we make our communion. One is this, that we dying people are allowed to feed upon the bread of life, and that we so have the assurance of our immortality. The Blessed Sacrament is for each one of us the pledge, promise, and means of immortal life. The second is that because we feed upon him who is the most holy, we ourselves, through union with him, may become holy too. The Blessed Sacrament is the pledge and the promise to each one of us that we may one day be numbered among his saints. Thirdly, we never know what any day may bring forth for us. But in Holy Communion, we are allowed to make ourselves one with him, to whom one day brought the agony and the challenge of the cross. That day we now call Good Friday, and that gallows tree became the tree of life. Out of the worst, he brought the best. We too, through our communion with him, may make of the worst occasion a revelation of love and of faith in the God who is love.